My name is Patrick Long. I'm a Southern California native who's been fortunate enough to race for Porsche in endurance sports car racing for the last 2 decades. First time on this version of a rally sim by CXC. Awesome to have that analog feeling of 3 pedals, H pattern, an analog handbrake. Those are all the things that I love about vintage cars. And this really does simulate all of those things where you are so much more busy than in a modern car. When you go old school, there's much more input physically and mentally, and that's very engaging.
A client called us up a while ago and said, look, I'm racing a vintage Porsche 911 rally car, which is quite unique. And he wanted a way to practice as much as possible in his tiny little apartment in Manhattan. So that kind of told us really all the things we really needed to have in his Motion Pro 2. And that meant building a very specific 6-speed gated shifter, certain feel, the dimensions all had to be exact, a hydraulic handbrake, that matched the right throws and pressures and location in the car. It also had to be a single screen VR only simulator because real estate's expensive in Manhattan and he needed to put this in a tiny little room. We needed to use a different piece of software for the driving model. In this case, we're using Dirt Rally 2. It's also a really good loose surface racing simulation platform. So we put all of those things together for him so that he would have something as close as possible to his real race car to be able to practice anytime he wanted.
Rally is about loose surface, changing conditions, different types of pace notes telling you the angles of the corners, and it's really a big exercise in following directions from your co-driver, your simulated co-driver, and what's coming up.
Opens long 30, 5 right long, tightens 4.
It's not circuit racing, so you never see the same corner twice, and that's something that has so much following and passion for people who follow rally racing, who partake in different levels of professional to amateur rally racing. And vintage rally racing is much of that discipline of having less tech, fewer tools, fewer driver aids available to you. The speeds are a little bit lower, but actually the senses and the visceral mind believes that you're going even that much quicker because there's so much more sensation of speed in vintage cars. So I've had a lot of fun in this and definitely want some more laps on one.
Caution slow 30, 5 left long of a crest, tightens 2.
It's really fantastic to have drivers like Patrick Long available to us to use to kind of ask, you know, how does this feel? How does this car behave in real life? And Patrick, in this case, is not only is he a current factory Porsche race car driver, but he's really into vintage Porsches, and he's built a vintage Porsche rally car, so he knows how things should feel and behave. So it was invaluable to have his expertise on hand to kind of just verify and check before the customer takes delivery of the simulator.
The shifter and the handbrake is something definitely to get used to, especially with VR, because you can't look down and see your shifter or your handbrake, so it's much about feel. But in reality, when you're in a real car in a rally setting, there's no time to look around the car. You're so glued outside. You're looking as far down the road as possible. There's trees, there's markers, there's safety cars, there's all kinds of things that you really have to keep it inside the lines of rally racing. It's much different than dropping a wheel in circuit racing, bringing it back on, and no harm, no foul. If you drop a wheel to the wrong corner in rally racing, your day is over. But all in all, I really enjoy the old school kind of sensory discipline that this sim behind me provides. I think it's really important to put the hardware and the software together for the driver so that the whole experience is much more connected. And I think that one of the points of the CXC sims that I've really enjoyed working with the team here and learning how to use these tools is just the motion. It's very realistic, the way that it tells you where the ground is changing, the angles, the braking G-forces. All of those types of things have to be so dialed in and have to be designed and engineered by people who have driven real cars to understand how to send the right message to the driver and the user.